So I'm a partner in RPC's insurance group, specialising in financial risks. I'm just going to talk a bit about why it's very much in vogue to be an insurance lawyer at the moment. Firstly, the hero of the award-winning film Bridge of Spies, played by Tom Hanks, was an insurance lawyer. It's very rare that we're heroes. And secondly, more importantly, the legislature has enacted the most radical reform of insurance contract law for over 100 years, which is going to materially change the way that the business of insurance governed by English law is conducted in the UK. These are major changes for insurance lawyers, trust me. In terms of when it's going to be in force, it's going to be in force on the 12th of August 2016, and it's going to apply to all insurance contracts, reinsurance contracts, retrocessions, and also any amendments made to existing contracts after the 12th of August 2016. So I'm just going to talk you through what I think are the 5 biggest changes to the current law. The first one is that the insured's pre-contractual duty has been recharacterised as a duty to give fair presentation to insurers. It retains the duty of utmost good faith, importantly, but it is a very different test. And to give a fair presentation, the insured must give a clear and accessible presentation of the risk to insurers, and they will fulfil that duty if they give insurers enough information to put them on notice that they need to ask further questions. Okay, so the second major change is that the law governing what an insured and insurer ought to know has been radically reformed. So this is for the purposes of what they ought to disclose prior to inception of the policy. And the new test is essentially to try and find out what the insured ought to know by reference to what they ought reasonably to have discovered through conducting a reasonable search of information. What is a reasonable search? I think the courts are really going to have to give us some guidance on this. I actually think this is going to be a greater burden on insureds. The third biggest change, and I think is the most fundamental change, is to remedies. And what it's finally done is it's removed avoidance as being the sole remedy for a breach of the duty of utmost good faith. Now, avoidance is still available if the breach is deliberate or reckless. However, the key distinction is that if the insurer cannot prove that the breach was deliberate or reckless, then the remedies available will be determined by what the insurer would have done had the risk been fairly presented. For example, they may have charged a higher premium, they may have varied the terms, or they simply might not have written the risk. Okay, so the fourth biggest change is in relation to warranties, and it has a few strands. So firstly, an insurer will not be able to permanently discharge itself of liability for breach of warranty if the breach of warranty could have been remedied prior to the loss. And this is a major change, as cover will remain in place provided the breach is remedied. The second point is that basis of contract clauses have finally been abolished. That was very much on the cards. The third one, which I think is going to be the most interesting, probably lead to the most litigation, is in relation to Section 11. And I'm not going to go into it, but essentially what it's trying to do is redress the balance of taking a breach of warranty argument in circumstances where that breach of warranty is not relevant to the actual loss. I won't say any more about it. Let's see what the courts say. So the final major change, which is slightly left field because it hasn't currently been enacted, is the introduction of a regime for damages for late payment of claims. And this was very controversial at the consultation stage, but it's been reintroduced in the Enterprise Bill recently. And what it will essentially do, it will allow an insured to sue an insurer for not paying their claim within a reasonable amount of time. Many think it will introduce a kind of bad faith regime that we see in the US into UK law, but we'll have to wait and see. So in summary, those are my top 5 changes. Insurance law is getting sexier, I promise. And finally, it's going to be a very interesting time to see what happens in the courts after August 2016.